What's up, gang? Number 8 in your scorecard, number 1 in your heart, Albert Sugar Bear Barbieri. Well, I thought it'd be a good idea to relive a little bit. I'm not going to tell the story over again. Everybody knows about my Salvie Testa story and the Chicky Narducci Ziganet game that involved me as a 21-year-old kid. I got involved with Frank Sindone in the game. But I told them stories back in 2019. If you want to see them and listen to them, you can go on my YouTube channel and you can find it. But this video is ignited because I don't get to see all the comments and questions from people who watch the video, and because my videos, some of them are on other people's channel, and I don't get the notifications, and I don't go on YouTube often to check like I should and check, and I see comments from 3-4 years ago that I never seen, and they have some people have questions. So what I want to do is, I'm not going to relive the story. Like I said, you can go on my YouTube channel and you can listen to the Salvie Testa story and the Chicky Narducci, Frank Sindone, Ziganet story. This took place in the Salvie Testa story took place in 1982, and the Ziganet game in 1979. But I thought it would be a good idea to jot down these questions, and I like to answer them to fill in the gaps, because, and sometimes when I tell a story, I kind of leave out a little bit, not on purpose, but if you watch it, people have questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it and I'm going to answer them, okay? So, first let's just do the Salvie Testa story, the questions that I found on the comment area. So, Joe67 says, this story never gets old. I love it. You give every minute detail. Sugar Bear can really keep you interested with his narrating skills. I appreciate that, Joe, and that's one thing. A lot of people say, Sugar, you take too long, get to the point. Listen, when you tell a story, you got to tell a story, and you got to paint a picture. That's the whole thing about telling a story. So he goes on, he goes, question now. Did you go to Salvie's funeral? What was the vibe around South Philly when Salvie was killed? Okay, so Salvie was killed September 15, 1984. I already had moved to Anchorage, Alaska to chase a baseball dream of playing baseball in Alaska. So I was not there for the funeral because I moved to Anchorage, Alaska in January of 84, and I came home in August of 1985. And what was the vibe? And he also says, what was the vibe around South Philly when Salvie was killed? I wouldn't know that either. So I'm sorry I can't answer that. Okay, then the next question from the Anita 1965. This is from 2 years ago. She says, or whoever, she, sounds like there is a lesson to be learned in this story. I wonder if Sugar Bear figured it out. He made a mistake. Better Salvie teach it to him than someone else, maybe. Well, yes, I did learn a valuable lesson. And the fact that I continue to play poker, when you win a pot, you don't needle your opponent as you're taking in the money. That's not cool. And yes, I learned a valuable lesson, and I don't do it. When you play poker, you gamble, just take the money. And like Chicky Changalini said to me, you shut the fuck up. Right, exactly. All right, here's one from Matt Sweeney, 3957, 2 years ago. Did you guys play organized football at Bishop Neumann High School? Salvie looked like an offensive lineman. You too, Matt, NYC. Well, Matt, like I said in the story, Salvie and I went to the same high school, Bishop Neumann High School, and Salvie was 2 years ahead of me. He was class of 74, I was class of 76. Salvie did not play high school sports, Okay, he was a pretty good athlete, like I say in the story. He did come to the playground at 16th and Wolf. Everybody knows it is 16th and Jackson. He did play basketball. He was, and we had a Saturday morning league, and and he played. Well, not the league. He'd come and play, and he played rough touch football. And he was I remember him being a lineman in the rough touch football leagues. Whether defensive offense, I can't remember. But to answer your question, no, Salvie did not play sports at Bishop Newman High School. Next question, at ATONKEY, Atani at Tunkey 45. This is 4 years ago, this question. You can tell the difference between these dudes. Oh, this kid's got a little sarcastic with me. You can tell the difference between these dudes, meaning me, because I'm telling the story. How about they all tell a true story and not embellish? Listen, ATONKEY 45. See this question? You should address this to Gianni Russo, okay? Please, don't insult me. Embellish nothing, okay? Next question, from 2 years ago. Robert Bigato, from 2 years ago. Hey, question, was Salvie a bully, or was he a good guy just caught up with the wrong people? Okay. All right, I'll be very delicate to answer this question. First of all, was Salvie a bully? I only can go what I know, okay? I was not what they say in the life that Salvie pursued, and what ancient history tells us about Salvie and his dad, right? Salvie was a total gentleman, respectful, charming, polite kid to any of us. Now, I'm speaking for us, meaning the kids, the guys from South Philly who were not in the life, okay? No, he was not a bully. He didn't use his status, or I don't even know what's even proper to say, mob status or gangster status, to be disrespectful to any of us, okay? He was just a nice fucking kid, nice guy, okay? And from what I've heard from his circle of friends who were either his personal friends or friends in that life, the fucking guy was a gem. He really was. He was fun to be around. And I'm, like I said in the video, I'm not claiming to grow up with Salvie or be a close friend. I was just friendly with him. He knew me. His father and my father knew each other, and that's how it was. I'll tell you a real funny story, and this is why when I say me and Salvie got along, and we're going to talk about why he was cool with the prank and gave me the money back. There's a couple questions that point to that issue, but I never forget it. I tell in the story, the Ziggurat story, my father throws me out of the house in 19th and Mifflin, a January night in 1981, a week before the Eagles Super Bowl, okay, against the Oakland Raiders, because I was just doing what I want to do, living under his roof, didn't want to go to work. He had jobs for me, city jobs, state jobs. I just turned them away. I'm coming home 2 a.m. I come to the payment. I see my box spring mattress up against the wall. He had a big corner property, duplex. My clothes are in a box. The locks on the door were changed. 2:30 in the morning on a frigid, not freezing, a frigid, just like we went through this winter, okay? I got a 1976 beautiful Toronado that I could sleep in that night. Obviously, I probably didn't have money. I wasn't going. Who's thinking of a hotel? I probably didn't have money. I came home from the shore. I probably went broke. And he threw me out of the house. I wind up living with my cousin, who was a college student, law school at Temple. They had 4 bedrooms. There was 3 of them, him and 2 of his student friends. They gave me a bedroom. So, but to get back with my father, my friends knew, my close friends, I gave them instructions. My father's going to ask you where I'm at, where I'm living, who I'm living with. You tell him nothing. Okay, my father has a right to throw me out of the house, but he don't have a right now to know what I'm doing or where I'm living. So I tortured my father for about a year and a half, okay, 2 years almost, until one day I kind of patched it up, and I was talking with him, and I remember it was 1983. This is probably a year later since the Salvie Testa story that involved the poker game. I was booking a little bit. I had a little book, and I was also turning in to Salvie's house. Okay, Salvie knew this, and I got a little book, and I'm gambling, so you're going to be a fuck up once in a while, right? And I needed money, so I went to my father. My father had the 48 Club, the Republican 48 Club on Snyder Avenue, right off of 18th and Snyder. I go around there, and I'm going to ask my father for $3,000. I tell him I have a little book, but my father didn't want to enable me in anything to do with that life. He wanted me to go to work and fucking earn a living, go to work, okay? And that's why he threw me the fuck out of the house, because I didn't want to go to work, right? I'm 20-something years old. He says no. So to spite him, I say, fuck it then. I'll go ask Salvie. Salvie, give it to me. Well, unbeknownst to me, that was a mistake. I should have never said that, but I wanted to spite my father. I go around Hutchison and Catherine. Salvie was there. I go up to Salvie. I said, Salvie, I need a loan, $3,000. Sugar, can you handle it? I said, yes, Sal, I can handle it. Okay, come around Saturday, I'll give it to you. Just a few days later. So I go back to Hutchison and Catherine. I need this money. I need this money for my book, paying people. I'm walking through the grocery store, the Conti grocery store, and I'm going to the back of the hangout room, and I don't like the look of Salvie's. I don't like the look on Salvie's face. Not that it was a mean look or an angry look. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? I walk up to him. He goes, Sugar, I got bad news for you. I'm like, what the fuck? Bad news? You didn't tell me somebody died? I can't give you the loan. I'm like, why, Salvie? You told me you would give it to me. Well, your father came around, and I got to respect him. He told me not to give it to you. Oh, my God. My balls hit the floor. My testicles hit the floor. So this is how Salvie was. Salvie was cool. He was respectful. He was no bully. But that was just another twist to my, association with Salvie and knowing Salvie. But anyway, just to add on to that, this is pretty neat too. Everybody knew Louis Gums. Louis Gums, I got to know because of Giggy. Now, Giggy was mentioned in the Salvie Testa story, Salvatore Storione. He was, at the time, going out with Chicky Ciancaglini's daughter. So me and Giggy were tight. He was friendly with Louis Gums. Now, Louis Gums was a notorious gambler, loved to shoot crap. He lived on Passyunk Avenue. Unbeknownst to me, he lived in Blonde Babe's building. I didn't know that for years until I found out years later. Apartment, him and his girlfriend. But anyway, Louis Gums took a liking to me. I tell him my issue, and this guy, Louis Gums, said, you want to hang out here? I'll do the best I can to get it for you. Well, I barricade myself in his apartment for 4 or 5 days. He's gambling, he's betting ball games, and don't you know, he grinds out $3,000 for me in the action he was given, betting, and he bailed me out. Louis Gums, what a great guy. And I know everybody knows him. Everybody had a nice thing to say about him and his girlfriend. Sadly, they died to health issues and stuff, but this was South Philly in the day, man, in the late 70s, early 80s. So, no, Salvie Testa was no bully. No bully. Next question. Okay. There's a person by the name at GERILAGEE6388 who got confused and said that he thought it wasn't cool that Chicky acted the way he acted with Salvie because of the Chicky Narducci saga with Salvie. Well, obviously, this kid got it all wrong. I mentioned in the description, when I mentioned Chicky, it's Chicky Ciancaglini, okay? It wasn't Chicky Narducci. I say it in the description. So people, when you see my stories, I break it down. It's not like Facebook. When I do a Facebook story, I post it. I have the pictures, and I put it. You got to go. My YouTube might have a title of the video, but go in the description. I lay out all the characters. Okay, so it wasn't Chicky. I wasn't speaking about Chicky Narducci. Okay, so you got it all wrong there. All right, here's the next one. That was 3 years. Both of them are 2-3 years ago. Here's one 4 years ago. At Sirachv logs 5586. 4 years ago. This is disturbing, and this is where some people don't get it. That was a punk move that he, meaning Salvie, played on you. He should have manned up and give you back your money himself. Okay, so he's saying it was a punk move to bring the money. As you watch the story, if you remember, I tell the story how Salvie came around the next morning, gave it to Chicky Ciancaglini to give to me. So I think this person sees it different. I see it differently, and I know everybody, my South Philly peeps and everybody who grew up in the inner city are going to understand. First of all, it's 1982. No cell phones. Salvie don't know where I live. Around the corner from the hangout, 9 Fitzwater. But he does know that Gigi and I are tight. And Salvie, knowing, here I am, a gambler, young gambler, my money, $900 in 1982, figures I need it. And let me go, Salvie being classy guy, get it back to me as ASAP. He brought it to Chicky, knowing he would see Gigi, and Gigi would get it to me. If this kid thinks it's a punk move that Salvie should have gave it to me himself, maybe I don't see Salvie 3-4 days or a day or whatever. $900 in my pocket immediately is more important than getting it to me face-to-face with Salvie 2 days later. So you got that all wrong. That was not a punk move. That was pretty fucking classy and cool of Salvie to do that. All right, here's another one from at Frank IESB. This is from 3 years ago. If Salvie didn't give you back your $900, how do you think you would have reacted? Or would you mention it to your dad like your problem in the Zigonet game? And when you see the Zigonet story, I told how I reached out to my father to kind of resolve that issue. But if Salvie never gave me the $900, I definitely would have not went to my father, okay? That was way different than what happened at the Zigonet game, okay? All right? Way different. Okay. I would have not mentioned to my father, and being a kid that gambled, I probably would have, at the time, days go taken on the chin. It's like losing a ball game, betting on a game, going down the shore. You lose. Your money is, what am I going to do? No. So, I got to believe I would not. I would have just took it on the chin, and that would be it. So, no, I would have definitely not told my father about that one. So, there's the questions. I'm sorry that years went by. I didn't see these questions. So, you can do that. Now, let's go to the Zigonet story and comments and questions that I haven't seen for years that I'm going to answer. Okay, now, again, go on my YouTube channel. You can see this story. This takes place 1979. I'm not going to rehash it, but here's some of the questions. This one is 4 years ago. Okay, 4 years ago. At CRYPTOCRIP. Is this the same? Okay, I mentioned Spike. Okay, for the people who seen the Zigonet story, I mentioned Spike, and he's the reason why I got barred from the Zigonet game. It's a long story. It involved Chicky. Chicky slapped me. Now, let me get something straight also. When I first told the story in 2019, I was in Vegas. I was at the Hard Rock Casino. And when I told the story, I didn't think it was appropriate to mention it was... I don't want to give away the story. I got out of line in there with Spike there was instructions for me to follow, not dealing with Spike because of something. Chicky slapped me because I was, I'm friendly with Chicky's son, Philip. I didn't think it was appropriate to mention that. But as I told it again, I that's the reason. But if you watch the story, you'll hear it. He says, this person, is this the same Spike in Philly and Eddie's book? The answer is yes to that. There's only one Spike that comes from South Philly. And he goes, Sugar, in your story, you say when you went up to the pool room after you ran into Spike at the car wash, and you tell Chicky Narducci's brother-in-law, Fatty, that you just was with Spike at the car wash. Why did Fatty say immediately when you mentioned Spike's name, I hope you didn't give him any money? Okay, let me just clear it up real quick. I happened to make a score of the Ziganet game. It ran from Saturday till Monday. And I run into Spike at a car wash off of 20th and Snyder. And Spike, knowing I made a score, he asked me to lend him $500 until the Ziganet game the next Saturday. And he was an impressionable guy. You knew he was friends with Chicky, the gold, the big Eldorado. I'm a young fucking dumb kid, 21 years old. And I give him the money. So after I leave the car wash, I go up to the pool room, 16th and Passyunk, Chiefy's pool room. Fatty's up there. And I said, Fatty, you ain't gonna believe who I just ran into. And when I say Spike, the first words out of Fatty's mouth, God rest his soul, Sugar, I hope you didn't give him any money. And the reason for that is the question is, why did Fatty? Because Spike was notorious, a notorious con man. Now, I didn't know this. How would I know this? I don't even know the guy. I just know him from the Ziganet game. He was a con man. There's urban legend that he conned a lot of guys. One of them was Robert Conrad from Wild Wild West. So he had his hands around my neck, ready to take $500 from me. But if you look at the story, it explains how I got my money back. Thank God, Fatty, Chicky's brother-in-law. But that's all tied into the story. I don't want to go over the story again. You can see it on my YouTube channel, Albert Sugar Bear Barberi or Albert Barberi. Just put it in, Ziganet game, Ziganet story, Salvie Testa story. You'll see it for people who are just seeing this now. Here's one from 3 years ago at South Jersey Kid 250. How much did Chicky Narducci's Ziganet game take from players who made a niner? Okay, so a niner is when you make the hand. Again, got to watch the story I tell. It was a 5% rake. So anything you won, you 5%, okay? And it wasn't just if you were a handman there's 9 players at the table, and then there's point men behind. I mentioned about Fatty on a ladder. Whoever's watching the game, they know if you win $100 at the end, you're down to 2 cards and you take $100 piece. Believe me, the guy on the ladder or the other guys watching ain't missing it. Say I won $100 on the last 2 cards or something. Sugar, $5. Gotta get it up. You know what I mean? That's what it was. 5%. Pretty strong. All right, here's another one. 4 years ago. All right. Has to deal with Spike again. You telling the story that you got word to stay away from Spike from Fatty, which you gotta watch the story. I keep repeating. You mentioned $200 was given to you from Chicky Narducci through Fatty, and Chicky would take care. I had instructions to stay away from Spike. Okay, and the question is, why would you disobey Chicky Narducci's request of just staying away from Spike? That was relayed to me from Fatty. Well, that is $1 million question. Okay. I'm young. I'm stupid. I'm 21. I seen him he still owed me $300. I did get $200 from Chicky. He gave it to Fatty, he gave it to me. Instructions were to stay away from Spike. I seen Spike with money in his hand, plenty of it, and I believe, because the week went by, okay, it was Saturday that he asked me for the loan at the car wash, and here it is next Saturday. I probably went bust down the casino. I'm always going down the shore gambling. Or didn't have enough money on me to want to play in the Zinganet game, and that's what happened. I got a little back and forth with him, and that's how the whole story. I made a mess of myself in there, and you can see all about that. But that's probably why I was just stupid and dumb, and I should have just listened to what I was told. All right, here's another one from Eye of the Tiger 6'7", 3 years ago. How is it being a South Philly kid in 1979 at 21 years old that you didn't know it was Frank Sindone when he walked in the Zinganet game late that night, demanded your money and go partners with you up on the deal? It was like, okay. Now, 21 years old is 1979, okay? I didn't know who to, let's put it this way. I think I say this very respectfully. I only knew what I knew from what the papers, the news told us. Obviously, I knew Chicky Ciangalini's status. I grew up with his kids, 16th and Jackson playground, all through high school, grade school, okay? So, into my younger, you got to understand, 79, I knew the Punjator brothers, grew up with them, the playground, their father, Blonde Babe. I didn't know his status at the time in 79, but I knew as I'm in my 20s, they can be bookmakers, loan sharks, or whatever. Same thing with Chicky Narducci because of Philip. Now, Philip's a few years younger than me, but coming up the pool room with him and Joey. Obviously, I knew Joey's dad's, who he was in the game, Chucky Miller. So only then that I knew their title or whatever they were at the time. Frank Sindone, I had no clue who this man was, Frank Sindone. I have no circle to him. I have no ties to him. I have no friends who's maybe who's an uncle to Frank or his son. No, nobody. So, and in 1979, like I said, this is pre-D'Angelo Bruno assassination, right? So, and where you're learning, you're reading the paper, you're getting an idea, okay? So, that's the reason why when he comes in Frank Sindone, I don't know who this fucking guy is. He takes my money out of my hand. If it wasn't for Fatty to tell me, just sip, he's on the ladder, Fatty tells me to keep my mouth shut and just relax. I was sharp enough to understand, okay, if he's telling me that, he must be somebody. And I did notice the respect he was given as he walked in and everybody. So, yeah, but I didn't know who Frank Sindone was. I think I know. But anyway, I figure I'd share that with you guys. So, for all the people that have asked me questions there, years went by, I never seen them. I'm so sorry. But that's it. And just remember, always shoot to the moon. Or don't shoot to the moon, always shoot for the moon. Because if you miss, you'll always be a star.
Can you explain this, please?
This alleged police impersonator